Video here on how to remove, repair, and replace a bearing block assembly on a 2015 Wildwood trailer. The first step that you're going to do is with the slide in, you're going to remove the three accessible interior screws. You're then going to move the slide out, which is going to allow you access to the exterior screws. At this point, you're going to jack up and support the slide itself so that it is supported. Because your slide is still 8 inches in, that's going to allow you access to the motors, the cylindrical motors, one on either side. What I'm going to be replacing is this part in here. We can't really see it yet, but we'll be able to see it later. I've got it supported with blocks underneath. The next thing I'm going to be doing is taking off what's called the H-column. So I'm going to be undoing all these screws, cutting away the caulking, which is going to free up this column. The next step will be that I will disconnect the motor. I will jump it with a 12-volt source, block of wood on the top. The reason why you put the block of wood on top is because you're going to be tricking the motor into thinking it's going to be retracting the slide. So what it's actually going to do, because the slide won't be able to move, is it's now going to pull out this H-column, which is going to access the bearings. I'll then be able to take off the rest of the screws on these rails on the top and the bottom, and then I should be able to pull away the entire rail assembly from the side of the trailer. All right, this is the underside of the slide on the interior, and what you can see here, this is the controller where both motors are connected into, and I have disconnected the connector for motor number 1. Motors you can find on the interior, they're going to be the upper part, and you're going to pull away 2 of the plastic seals, which just come away by hand, and then underneath them, mounted in here, you're going to see the cylindrical motor. All right, so what I've done is I've disconnected the motor 1 cable from the controller, and I've connected what you can see, just a 12-volt wire here, to the black and red terminals. Next, what I'm going to do is I've got the other ends, and I'm just going to use a battery from one of my drills, and my helper is black and red, and then if that doesn't work, if we're going in the wrong direction, they are going to switch them, and we're going to sort of jump it by about 3-second increments, and then I'll show it from the outside to see if this works. So we're ready to sort of trick the motor into pulling out the H-bar and the bearings. As you can see, I've got a block of wood on there which will stop the slide from coming in. I've gotten rid of all the caulk and the screws, stripped it all away, taken away the plastic shielding as well, and the crossbars are still screwed in on the outside, but there's 3 screws removed on the inside. So what should happen is this H-bar should slide out on these runners and bring the bearings with it, at which point we'll be able to remove it. This is working correctly. Go ahead. Keep going. All right, so that's successfully retracted out. And what I've realized now is I can definitely take off the runner bars without having to remove this fascia, because there's going to be a lot of space to do it. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is removing all these exterior screws from the runners, and then at that point I will be able to take the whole assembly off, and I'll put it in my laydown area in the garage. So after removing the exterior screws on the crossbars, we were able to, with 2 people, take the weight and remove the entire apparatus from the trailer. Things I've learned, so the motor comes off with it, so you want to make sure that you disconnect the motor. That's the motor there. And right now I'm not able to move the H-bar up and down the runner bars, I just call it that. And that's because the motor, I think, the motor is still connected. So it's sort of stopping any movement. So what I've learned is in order to disconnect the motor, you simply pry it up with a flathead screwdriver, and it should lift up and out. And then I should have free motion to be able to move the H-bar off the runner bars, and then be able to inspect and replace the bearing blocks. I marked with a Sharpie where it was just on the bar, there and there, and also I did it on the actual trailer itself. I wanted to make sure that I can put it exactly back in the same place, and I'll make sure that it's perfectly vertical when I install it as well. So I flipped the apparatus over, and extremely easy just to lift the motor out. There was almost no give at all. And now what I'm going to be doing is sort of hand cranking this so that I'm able to move the runner bars slowly out. Or the main axle, I should say, that connects to two spur gears, one up here and one here, which allows the motor to operate both sides at the same time. What actually broke was these tiny plastic tabs here, because as you can see, I'm able to lift this out. And these tiny plastic tabs go through these holes. They're almost like plastic rivets. But I am strongly considering replacing them with a self-tapping screw. All right, so here's a quick shot of my replacement for those plastic tabs that 3 or 4 of them broke because they were just tiny spacer tabs. So what I did is I used an 8 by 1.5 self-tapping screw. And I used Loctite with it as well, so that it won't come undone. I made sure that the length is about the same as the tab, so it wouldn't impact the spur gear or anything like that. So that's great. So I'm gonna clean these out with some compressed air, lubricate everything, and then put everything back together. So a bit of a reassembly walkthrough here. So the first step that we did, if you recall the axle in the apparatus itself, you want to line up the runner bars just to the edge of the main H bar, then hand crank the axle so that you pull the runner bars into the point where you've already marked it on your bar. Once the apparatus is then set up the same way it was when you took it off, you're then able to reinstall it back on the trailer itself. The next step, the interim step, is you're going to want to reinstall the motor, so that just drops into place, which is going to sort of hold the runner bars from being able to move, at which point you can then reassemble everything, putting it back, lining up with the lines that you'd already marked in the beginning. You can then do the exterior screws, screw them in, at which point then you can take your connector wire and run it back to your motor. At this point, you're going to be able to do the same thing that you did on the inside, basically jump the motor to drive the H-bar back into the trailer. Massive lesson learned here is you want to make sure your trailer is perfectly level. If your trailer is not level, the slide will not go back in properly. So I had to wrestle with that for a couple of hours. So make sure your trailer is level, so the slide, which is very flush, will slide back in. Once you've then gotten the H-bar back in, then you're able to screw it in, caulk it, put all the trim on, reinstall, rewire the motor on the inside, and then finally you're going to be able to reinstall the 3 screws on the interior, which you wouldn't be able to access